Often in storytelling, different characters will have different sets of moral standards. We can see this trend in almost every piece of fiction. The good characters are usually always good, and the bad characters are always bad. But Fate Zero blurs the line between good and bad much more than most works of fiction. This show goes to great lengths to discuss the moral frameworks of the characters. While there are protagonists and antagonists in Fate Zero, there really is no villain or hero in Fate Zero. Everyone in the world of Fate Zero exists on a scale, and once you understand this moral scale, you can understand the character's actions with crystal clear vision. While these views on morality may not be clear at times, they definitely have a major impact on the story. Today, we'll take a look at the morality of the characters in Fate Zero. By the way, there will be major spoilers for Fate Zero, so if you haven't watched it, please do that and then come back to this video. Also, I will be talking about complex issues like morality. I am not trained in psychology or in morality, so this is just speculations of a fan. So take my words with a massive grain of salt. Now, let's get started with talking about the moralities of the characters we love. I figured we should start with the lowest hanging fruit first, so let's discuss Ryunosuke and Castor first. Their morality is heavily based off their view of God. Ryunosuke believes that everyone's life is one big story, and that God is writing the story we are ultimately experiencing. This effectively means that he believes that there is no such thing as free will. If God wrote his will into existence, him killing people would just be fulfilling that role. As such, he believes that all the actions he commits are moral. Castor actually adopts this point of view, claiming Ryunosuke to be a brilliant man. But by the end of his character arc, he realizes that his worldview is fundamentally incorrect. When he says that his bleeding organs are the most beautiful thing in the world, he really means that on a moral level as well. He realizes in that moment that the most beautiful thing about life is life itself, and that ultimately, he did have free will over his actions. He could have chosen to be happy and live a peaceful and loving life. But by the point he reaches this conclusion, he's already dead. While Ryunosuke's morality is more about free will, other characters have been shown to have similar moral frameworks, but their moralities are a lot less based off of emotion or higher being, and more about logic and rationality. This segues perfectly into talking about Tokiomi. Tokiomi's morality mostly boils down to pure logic. If it makes sense to do something, he will almost always do it, even at the expense of innocent people. He believes in a form of social Darwinism, basically that only the strong should be able to live in his ideal world. If you are deemed a failure by him, you are not even worth the space you take up. You can see this philosophy in his fight with Berserker's master. During the fight, he mentions how Karia has no right to live, and that only the strong have that right. He most likely has inherited this morality from his past as a mage. When you have to fight against other mages, you cannot let your guard down in any circumstance, or else you're dead. But because he survived as a mage for so long, he was able to continue on. This moral framework has one gaping hole in it though. If you were weak in the present, but you will become strong in the future, technically that person isn't weak, they just have to grow. You can see this flaw in how he raises Rin. Theoretically, Rin should have already been killed for being a weak child, but he continues to rescue and teach her, so she can someday become strong. This ultimately goes against his social Darwinist philosophy. He shouldn't save Rin, but he ultimately does. So this shows that he's not as perfectly logical as he makes himself out to be. There are also other blind spots in Tokiomi's morality as well. He still loves and wants to protect his family, and he's more than willing to protect Kotomine after his role has finished, despite it not being logical to keep him alive. But in the end, this blind spot gets him killed, as he is quite literally stabbed in the back by Kotomine. Kotomine's ideology is very similar to that of Tokiomi, but they differ in a few key ways. Ultimately, he doesn't have the same weaknesses Tokiomi has. He isn't really disturbed when his father is murdered. He's even willing to kill his master to get the power of Archer. Kotomine is truly the cold killer who will do anything for power. He was raised in the church to be an executioner, a person who covers up things that could hurt the church's reputation. At first, he doesn't really know why he's getting involved with the Holy Grail War, but he eventually figures out that the thrill of fighting for the Grail is what he actually wanted all along. But as time goes on, he shows that he's not really the pious man that the church raised him to be. In the beginning, he rarely seeks out excitement, because he believes that to be a sin, but as he continues his quest for the Holy Grail, he becomes the very sinner he hates so much. He also changes from being stoic to being more expressive when Kiritsugu accidentally blows up Fuyuki. Kotomine ultimately becomes the man he hated, a sinner who does truly immoral things for entertainment. Since I was going over the masters earlier, I figure I should probably go over the servants at this point. Saber's morality comes from her past life as the King of Britain. She believes that killing innocent people is bad at all times, including when it would be easiest to kill them. This most likely stems from her past as a knight. Knights would often practice chivalry, a code which states that non-combatants should not be killed in combat. But you can see her sense of morality several times throughout the show. When Kiritsugu orders her to kill Lancer's master, she has an expression of guilt and depression. She doesn't want to kill someone who's completely powerless, because that would go against her core beliefs. This ultimately shows the difference between Saber and Kiritsugu, despite being on the same team. I also wanted to highlight Ryder at this point as well, but I really don't have too much to say about him, so it should be pretty quick. His morality is very similar to Saber's, but they disagree on a lot of things as well. Ryder believes that Saber wasn't actually a good king because she never truly led her army. You can see how Ryder was able to inspire his army through his noble phantasm, but Saber was never really able to do that. So Ryder feels that Saber wasn't really a king, and he doesn't really see her in that way. This tension in values leads to Saber and Ryder developing a sort of a rivalry throughout the show, and this rivalry would forever change the Holy Grail War. Since I'm talking about servants at this point, I figured I should go over the last prominent servant in the series. Archer's morality is very different from the other servants. Because he's the King of Kings, he feels that he is higher than the Holy Grail War itself, but he ultimately doesn't care about the Grail. Rather, he just wants the entertainment that comes along with the Holy Grail War and interacting with Kotomine. This also subverts the title of Master and Servant, as Archer acts independently of his master for most of the series. I think that Archer could really go either way in terms of morality. He very clearly cares about justice and honor, but he's also arrogant and extremely disrespectful to everyone in the series. This ties very neatly into his past and how he ruled as the true King of Kings. We also see more of him in Fate's Day Night, as he and Saber are the only two servants shown to compete in the Holy Grail Wars. But I think that now would be the best time to move on to the most interesting character in the whole series. Kiritsugu, in my opinion, has the most interesting morality of all the characters. His motive for getting the Holy Grail isn't selfish like the other masters. Rather, he wants to use the Holy Grail to end all conflict. What he fails to realize, however, is that in his desire to eliminate conflict, he's only created more conflict. When he was fighting in war zones as a mercenary, he would tear people's lives apart, limb for limb. His actions didn't lead to a decrease in violence, rather it caused an increased amount of violence in the world. We can see his ideology culminate during his interactions with the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail gives him the choice of saving 300 people or 200 people. He ultimately chooses to save 300 people, even when he had to directly kill 200 people. But then 100 people choose to leave, and he has to choose between 200 and 100 people. He ultimately chooses to kill the 100 people to save the majority again. But by the end of the test, he's actually killed the majority of the people. Remember, there were 500 people on all the ships, so in his desire to save as many people as possible, he actually killed the majority. This summarizes the major shortcomings of Kiritsugu's philosophy. Kiritsugu should have tried to be the hero he's always wanted to be, rather than searching for some grail which may not even exist. Once he gets his hands on the grail, it refuses to accept his wish, because it's too broad and would kill almost everyone on Earth. That's why he ultimately chooses to destroy the grail, so no one else could use the grail for evil. But this decision ultimately backfires on him. The grail unleashes mass destruction on many innocent people. The sad irony of this is that Kiritsugu thought that it would help people, but it actually made their lives worse. The unfortunate reaction of the Grail makes Kiritsugu despair, as his intention of saving the world led to further destruction. But Kiritsugu finds one boy who makes it through the fires. The last boy, named Shiro, represents Kiritsugu's ideal world, and how Shiro will use his father's ideology and magic ability to truly become the hero his father always wanted to be. Overall, Fate Zero is just an excellent series. It explores morality in a truly masterful way, focusing on how these different views cause unlikely friendships and rivalries, and how these different moralities can affect the character's point of view on the battlefield. While I focused on all the main characters, I really didn't have time to focus on the other minor characters, but I'm pretty sure that some way smarter people could probably point that out in the comments. Fate Zero, hopefully, will be remembered for its amazing use of morality, and hopefully will inspire other creators to focus on morality more. Thanks for watching my YouTube video. If you enjoyed my content, please give me a like. And if you want to see future content, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to hear when new content releases. Thank you, and see you guys next time.